Hello, good afternoon, Success Academy Union Square, second through fourth graders. Mr. Vanspool is back with you with another chess video. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into it. The checkmate pattern that I want to talk about today is called the Arabian mate. Of course, my higher advanced scholars already know this one, but this is for my friends just learning the checkmate and continuing with our patterns of, or our theme of um, going over checkmate patterns and learning checkmate patterns because they come up so much in our games. And the more we can memorize how to do these maneuvers or how to create these maneuvers, they will pop up when we play against our parents or our friends online or even in over the board tournament chess when we get back to it one day. So let's talk about the Arabian meat. In the Arabian meat, with the rook on the deadly seventh rank. So white rooks love to be on the seventh rank. They dominate on this seventh rank. Black rooks love to be on the second rank. The reason being is based on this position here, it is restricting this king. This king cannot leave from this eighth rank at all because the rook stops and controls the seventh rank, so the king cannot move forward. So this is an awesome maneuver in chess. In the Arabian meat, there's a second piece that helps restrict the king, and that's going to be our knight, okay? So most times our rook on c7 will be the attacking piece, and this knight on f6 will be the helper piece, the piece to support the rook and restrict the king so we can make a checkmate. So right now, based on how we do our bubble method, right now, which squares are safe for our black king? Yes, I agree. The square he is on. Is there any of the squares this king can walk and move away to right now? No, not quite. We know that the knight controls g7 and it controls h7. And we know this rook controls the deadly seventh rank. So it's controlling this square g7. I'm going to make this g7 square here. I'm going to make this g7 square here blue because it's very important to understand that if this rook leaves off the deadly seventh, let's say to give a check to the king, this king can now run away to this important g7 square. So right now, our rook must make a check that attacks this king, but still controls the important square of g7. Yep, totally correct. Rook c8 is incorrect again, because if I go rook c8 check, the king can run away to g7, so the move is rook h7. What two jobs is this knight doing with the rook here on h7? I agree. The knight is protecting the rook and guarding the rook so the king cannot capture. There's no way to block this check because the rook is right in the face of the king. And if we try to run away, the knight controls the important square g7. Let's take a look at another one. Is it white to move here and checkmate in one? Let's see if you can find an Arabian's mate. Remember, always check the checks. Look for all the checks that you can create in this position and then break them down using CPR one by one. All right, let's identify our checks and see what we came up with. So one check I see is knight h5.
Check.
But with knight h5, the pawn can just capture. And I think even though white can still win this game, we just gave up a nice checkmate in one, so that's not going to work. How about the move
Check.
98? 98 doesn't quite work because my king can do what letter in CPR? Don't get tricked. The pawns do not move backwards. They're moving towards the first rank. They're capturing towards the first rank. So yeah, my king can just run away. I can move to h7. I can move back to g8. I can even move over to h8. So then there's one more check in this position to put the king away for good. And that's rook
Check.
h8. Rook g8. Rook g8 is checkmate. Which piece supports this rook? Yeah, I agree. The knight supports the rook. Which piece supports the knight from being captured by the king? I agree. The pawn supports the knight. Can my king go to the eighth rank? Not right now. The rook controls both squares. And can my king move over to the h file? No, because my rook controls h8, my knight controls h7, and which piece controls h6? Absolutely correct. We have the pawn here. Awesome. When I can't capture, protect, or run away, it is called checkmate is correct. Let's check another one out. Remember, what two pieces are in our Arabian mate? We have the rook, we have a knight, and sometimes we have a helper piece and a pawn. So first we need to understand that black has checkmate in one. If white does not complete a checkmate pattern right now, then on the very next turn, queen takes h2 will be checkmate. Once that queen takes our rook, there's no way to run away or capture because this rook and queen will be protecting each other and putting this king in a checkmate. So white can still win if he uses tempo, which means time to make forcing moves. Remember, forcing moves can be checks or it can be captures. And we're gonna find checkmate in 3 moves by looking for our checks. Pause your videos and see if you can figure this one out. Calculate your moves. Check, black does this, check, black does this, checkmate, all forced. Great, so if you pause your videos and took a second to think about it, you understand pattern recognition right away. Immediately we understand that this pawn on g5 and this knight on f6 looks very familiar. My pawn on g5 is stopping and controlling my king's escape here to h6. And it is also doing the dual job of protecting my knight here on f6. So now if there was only a way I can infiltrate into the king's position and maybe sacrifice some material to get the king moving and running away. So we have a few checks here, so let's identify them all. I'm going to skip the checks that involve moving my knight because it seems like I want my knight here in this position. So the only other 2 checks that I see is queen takes h7, f7. So queen takes f7, and then let's calculate from there. We could move back to h8, and I think that's going to lead to a checkmate with queen takes f8. But strong chess players will quickly realize the best move from here is not to run away. It is in fact to capture here with either the rook or the king. I probably prefer the rook. And now we're out of the checkmate threat. There's also one other check that's not going to make much sense right away, but once you think about the theme of forcing moves, it will make sense right away. So queen takes f8.
Check.
Now immediately you go, what, Mr. Vansible? You're giving up a queen for a rook? That makes 0 sense. What are you talking about? That's not how you play chess. But we have to think about it. Queen takes f8, check. The king has no option. This is a forcing move. I cannot run away. The queen controls the 8th rank. I cannot come to h6. The pawn controls, the queen controls h6. I cannot capture the knight. Again, the pawn is the protector, the defender, the helper piece. So it seems like my only option is for my king to take this queen. So instantly you think, wait, but they have a queen and we don't. This is not okay, right? But instead of just taking this rook and queen captures your rook and then you lose the game because it's a fork, you have to look for more checks. Can anybody find another check here that makes sense without moving our nice prime position pattern pieces? Super, super duper smart. I agree. Rook e8
Check.
is another forcing move. Who can tell me where the king is forced to now move? Helper piece. No, we cannot capture. Yeah, king g8. And now g7. And now once this king goes to g7, there's a nice forcing move to end the game. There's one more check to put this game away for good. Can anyone help me out? Yep, you got it. Pattern recognition brings our rook to g8.
Check.
And that will be checkmate. So the knight on f3 looks comfortable, but we cannot deliver a checkmate on the back rank because of the rook on a1. This rook on a1 is stopping us from maybe just bringing in a rook and starting an Arabian's mate. But if you think about your checkmate pattern, you realize that this g4 pawn and this f3 knight are in prime position for an Arabian mate attack. So you're going to pause your video, and I want you to come up with a plan to eliminate the back rank defenders. We got to get rid of a white piece on the back rank. How are we going to do that? Awesome. If you pause the video, you realize that there's this nice sacrificial move here with queen takes a1. Now you're instantly giving your opponent something sweet. You capture the 5-point rook, and they're gonna take a 9-point queen back. So they're over there corner. They're like, "Yeah, we took your queen. We're gonna win this game. This game is over. There's nothing you can do about it." Until you hit them with a stunning move. How can Black now control the back rank and threaten a checkmate in one? I agree, the move rook d1, and if you are a super advanced scholar and you realize that this was a double attack or double threat, it does threaten the knight, and it also threatens checkmate here on g1. That is correct. And now the queen can only like prolong the game with some silly checks. For example, you can go like check
check,
and take here, check, but it's just
check,
prolonging what's inevitable. And you can try to promote here, and then you have
check,
rook g1 checkmate with our pattern recognition and realizing that the knight controls h2 and it protects the rook on h1, g1. The rook guards and controls the entire first ring, and this pawn stops the runaway square of h3. So it seems like the best move in this position is honestly probably for the queen just to take the knight. And when pawn captures,
check.
king captures, rook takes knight, the game, it doesn't end in a checkmate just yet, but this game will end in just a few short moves after I can take some more pawns, maybe promote into a queen and make a checkmate. Last example here for today. So it's white to move here. And playing rook c8 right away
Check,
is not a good idea. I know you notice your pattern recognition and you want to bring in this move for a
check,
checkmate, but this is not a forcing move. My king, after this check on
check,
c8, does not have to move back to g7. I can, in fact, come over to e7. And
check.
after this check, my king is free and ready to run away. And you're technically losing by a pawn. So this is not the position we want if we are white. So right now, we need to use an idea of tempo in gaining time. We need time to be able to get this rook onto the e file so we can use the rook on the e file to make a checkmate this way. How could we threaten one of Black's pieces and force the piece to move away so we can have another free move to move our rook over to the square e1? I agree with you. Rook c1 threatens this bishop, and now this bishop is forced to move away. My bishop can move here for all it wants. It can move here, anywhere. Let's move here for purposes, and then I'm going to move my rook over the e1. And now, Black is out of options. This pawn here on f3 is so critical and crucial because the bishop cannot block here and blockade the rook from getting to the e8 square. This pawn on a4 is very critical because it stops the bishop from getting to b5 safely and defending the e8 mating square. So at this point, I think it's also about saving the game. So for first example, we will show that
Check,
this leads to a Arabian's
check,
checkmate. However, if we go back, the best idea is probably just to give a piece back here. Pawn takes, rook takes. And now we still have this mating threat. So Black is forced to trade off these rooks. You have an extra knight, and you should be able to complete the game. Quickly, just to run through a quick game where the trap also happens. This is a game where you can pause and go slowly and go through the game. So I'm going to zoom through a few moves here. c4, e5. This is the English. Knight c3, d6. I'm just going to zoom through some moves here just to show you how great chess players play, what high-level chess players play like. They're bringing all of their pieces out. And Black is about to start a major attack. This is very unnatural for White's king pawns around him to be missing like this. This is not good attacking chess for White right now. And this is just interesting move. Black just played bishop to h3. If knight takes g3, if 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 we take here on h3, then we
check,
have rook takes f1, queen takes
check,
f1, rook takes f1, Rook takes back, and black is up in material. They've just won a queen. So we don't want to take that. So instead, white comes up to f2, d5, captures, captures.
Check.
And this is where the fun begins. Can anybody find a checkmate in one move using the Arabians' mate idea? We have our nice knight. Absolutely correct. The bishop is guarding this nice square as well. So rook takes h2, checkmate will give us the game. Remember, if you like this video, to like, share, and subscribe. Continue to watch these weekly videos as we continue to go through our checkmate patterns. If you sign up for Lichess, feel free to follow me at StormXPhoenix right here, all above written in blue. And I am here to happy to answer any questions and any feedback. Continue to stay safe. Until next time, friends.